Welcome to Immigration Review, your weekly source for immigration case law updates and insights. I'm your host, Kevin A. Gregg, a partner at the immigration, medical malpractice, and business litigation law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, back again to review the week's precedential immigration cases, rummaging through the decisions so you don't have to. This podcast is sponsored by Serenade e-Immigration. Choosing immigration software is one of those decisions that you feel for years. The wrong system slows your team down and adds stress to every case. But the right one makes everything feel more manageable. You need to be able to tell the difference. That's why the team at e-Immigration created a free immigration software buyer's guide to help you make that decision with confidence. It covers everything from must-have capabilities to the 7 signs it's time for better tools. Find it at get.eimmigration.com/IRP and take the guesswork out of your software search. Or click on that special link in the show notes. This podcast is also sponsored by Gonzalez & Gonzalez Immigration Bonds. Immigration attorneys. Once you've secured a bond, let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take it from there. In business and family-owned for 75 years, Gonzalez & Gonzalez helps other families post immigration bonds quickly, easily, and with full support every step of the way. Sure, you can post directly with DHS, but that means no guidance, no help when something goes wrong, and a 4 to 6 month wait for a refund. With Gonzalez & Gonzalez, families get hands-on help throughout the entire process and typically get refunds within 1 to 2 weeks of receiving the I-391 notice. Tired of being the point of contact for every bond question? Let Gonzalez & Gonzalez take those calls. They'll handle the paperwork, the system issues, and the family's concerns, so you can focus on what really matters, winning the case and helping your clients stay in the country. You can reach Gonzalez & Gonzalez at 833-409-9200. Their fee? Just 2% plus $40, and for bonds of $10,000 or more, they can defer the fee and deduct it from the refund. Financing options? They've got those too. Give Gonzalez & Gonzalez a call, check them out at immigrationbond.com, or click on their special link in the show notes. And as always, this show does not constitute legal advice and has no bias other than to keep you up to date and to enable you, my dear colleagues, to excel in court. So, without further ado, let's start the review. Son of a migrant worker, single mother, Homero López spent his childhood migrating between South Texas, the Midwest, and northern Mexico, where his extended family still live to this day. He would attend about 3 different schools a year as he and his mother followed the crops and would spend his summers in Mexico with his grandparents and uncles. A traveling law troupe that did skits in the fields showed Homero that lawyers were more than just what he saw on TV and could be helpful to the community. That would eventually bring him to the gem that is New Orleans, into the trenches of detained immigration nonprofit work in swampland, and all the way up to the Board of Immigration Appeals. Until he was let go, I imagine, because of who he is and what the new EOIR thought he believed. He returned to the nonprofit he co-founded, Immigration Services and Legal Advocacy, ISLA, where he remains to this day, doing detained work in the Louisiana area. In short, it's going to be a time of an interview. Honored to do it. And so, here is my special episode interview with Homero López. Homero López, welcome to the Immigration Review podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It's been a long time coming.
That's good. Gave me time to figure out what I wanted to say.
Well, I'm going to try to throw some curveballs at you, so all of your preparation will have been for naught. It is March 11th, 2026, in the afternoon. You are in Louisiana, I suspect.
I am in the beautiful city of New Orleans.
Oh, that is the beautiful city of New Orleans. My brother lives in New Orleans. It is a fine city.
Does he now? Where?
He lives right next to the Whole Foods that used to be a train station.
Oh, so he's an uptown kid. Got it.
I don't know what that means, but if it's criticizing my little brother, I'm all for it.
Perfect.
So what are you? You're not an uptown kid.
I'm not an uptown kid. I'm in mid-city. More chill, relaxed. People a little bit more laid back.
It's pretty chill and relaxed there. Lots of potholes. And it does look, but that's all of New Orleans. And it does look like he's in the what's it called? The box? He's in a box during Mardi Gras.
He's in the Mardi Gras box. Yeah. He would be stuck and very difficult to get out or move
I got
around.
caught in a box last year. I had to catch a flight. It's wild with New Orleans. He's a doctor, so we have to get special get out of the box privilege.
Yeah. We were with our first daughter. We live in mid-city. There's only one parade that runs near us.
Okay.
But when our first daughter was due the Sunday, the next day, there's one parade that runs on Saturday near us. And our first daughter was due that Sunday. So we were really scared because we were in a box and there was no way we would get through to go to the hospital. Thankfully, she took an extra week and we didn't have to deal with it.
How is this? How is this a thing? How is this how a major U.S. city operates? That's the wildest thing in the world.
It's so much fun, though.
It's fun, but if your wife goes into labor, there's really no way to get out of that box.
We had planned a lot of different alternatives on how we would try to get out. We thought, would we park the car on the other side in case we needed to? But even traffic would have just been really difficult. You roll with it. It's part of the culture of the city. You roll with whatever comes.
Can you explain to listeners what we mean by the box? It occurs to me that nobody probably knows what we're talking about.
I'm sure there's plenty of people here listening to you, but
some of them know.
The way the parade works, it's, it runs down a certain street or certain streets. And if you're on the inside of those streets, you can't cross the street because there's tons of people in the street. There's these massive floats that are going down the street, and police officers have blocked the roads, have blocked the streets. You basically can't cross.
Can't cross.
So if you're inside the box, if you're on the wrong side of the parade, then you can't get to the other side in any way whatsoever. It's kind of like this big border that they build up. And
a big fake border.
It's a made-up line. You can't go on that side, and it creates problems.
But it's a fun border, this one. What is your parade that you get stuck in the box? What's the one that goes by your house?
It's called Endymion.
What's it about?
What do you mean, what's it about?
They have themes, right?
Oh, every year they change the themes, though. So every parade, every crew has a different theme every year.
Okay.
This year, it ran on Valentine's Day, so it was Valentine's themed.
I know near my brother, they have the plumbers parade. That theme is always plumbers. I mean, I guess.
Yeah, tux.
Yeah, right. Okay, so you know your parade.
I can never make that one because it's that Saturday morning and I'm locked in the box and I can't get out.
That's right. What? You're like my brother, actually. Then you're raising a New Orleans kid. That's a special kid. Like that. A brass band came to my brother's daughter's daycare. A bunch of 1-year-olds listening to a New Orleans brass band because it's New Orleans. Just did all these parades. What's it like raising a New Orleans baby?
It's amazing. Honestly, Mardi Gras, I did it during the 20s and into my early 30s, and it was fun. And I did the fun stuff that you do in your 20s and during Mardi Gras. And then seeing it now through their eyes and the way they react and the way they like it, it's incredible. It's a completely different perspective of how much fun it is. And the fact that they get off a week and a half from school just because the city's partying, and to grow up in that, it's pretty magical, honestly.
It is my favorite city in the world. That's not San Diego. Well, my favorite city in the country. That's not San Diego. It's a wonderful place, New Orleans. Final question, New Orleans related. What's your favorite king cake? Where is it from?
It's got to be Dong Feng out in the east. It's an amazing king cake.
I've heard about it. No, yes, it's a good king cake.
Yeah, and now I've got a bunch of New Orleanians mad at me because everybody has their own.
You're not getting paid by Dong Feng.
I'm not getting paid by Dong Feng to advertise them.
Well, welcome to the podcast. None of that was planned, although much of this isn't. What is planned is this. I was thinking about it. You sent me your resume as I requested. before this interview, as I've been requesting since Nick Perry did it to me last year. I thought, yeah, it's a pretty good thing. I get to learn a bit more about you than what I knew. And in looking at your resume, it occurred to me that you are barely older than me. Now looking at you right now on this, I look much older than you. And it's very surprising to me, not because of how you look like a young man, but I get this idea of Homero López because of how you hold yourself out, because of your grace, because of your accomplishments. I thought this is Homero López is an adult. That's a compliment. Yeah, that's a compliment. That's not even a question. That's a compliment.
I'll take it.
You're quite the thing, and I'm happy you're on the show. Not happy that you are pretty much my age.
Why not? I think you've done great. You're on this podcast. You know, let us know all the time what's going on in the world of immigration. I think you're very well known, and you undersell yourself on a regular basis.
I guess I think of myself in my brain. I'm 25. That's like not. I don't. Now when I start acting, I don't act like a 25-year-old. I don't even want to be 25, but I think of myself like that. I mean, it's more of a Kevin problem, I'd say. I don't know if
you think so. I think we all have an internal age where we stop aging,
right,
and you kind of max out at that, and I think that's fine. I think it's okay to be 25. It's more
like 28. I think it's 28. You know, after law school, just like I just graduated law school. It wasn't in 2013.
It wasn't in 2013.
No, it wasn't 2013.
Okay. I was like, that's not just. You've got 13 years there. That's not yesterday.
That's right. And I've got more gray than brown just looking at myself now.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of things. We're going to talk about them. I want to start with what you're currently doing, which is what you used to be doing, and how important it is. And I want people to know that with all of the mass detention going on, especially in the state of Louisiana, there is a Homero López out there.
We mostly do nonprofit and pro bono work. We take on as many as we can on a direct rep, universal rep type of model that we do. We focus on representing detained immigrants. As you said, it's what I used to do. It's what I really love to do, is doing the direct representation in detention centers. I know I'm a masochist.
Seriously. No, I want to. So first of all, the organization is called Immigration Services and Legal Advocacy, correct?
Yes, or ISLA. Yeah.
And you've been doing it since 2018. I can't believe it. I get a couple of detained cases a year, and it takes everything to do them. And you have been in these trenches since 2018. How do you do it, and why do you love it?
I started doing it right out of law school. I graduated. I started a position with Catholic Charities of Baton Rouge, where we were doing at the time, now defunded, legal orientation program, and it sent me to detention centers throughout Louisiana. And at that point, I got the bug. I liked it. I like being there. I like talking with folks. It's people being in these terrible situations and the level of hope they still have, their grace, how happy they are to talk to you, their story, just hearing their stories, talking with them, working it through, discussing, even when there's not an option, right? When there's nothing I can do for you. There's no legal argument here where you're taking an order of removal or maybe VD. And they're just so happy and so grateful that you're helping in that situation and that you're there to speak with them. And it's the humanity of it is the part that really comes forward for me. And what makes it powerful to me is it's two people having a conversation and getting to know folks, chatting with folks, and them just being so, again, grateful and hopeful as well. It really gives you a different perspective, and anything that you're complaining about, it's kind of like, wow, is it really that bad? Because folks are going through some really bad times.
That resonates with me. Those are some of the things I like the most about being in removal defense and immigration attorney. I'm pretty sure a lot of removal defense attorneys would say a similar thing. But here's the thing. Every second I'm talking with my clients, listening to them, going to the detention center, hearing their story, I'm not working on a case. And as an attorney, and we're usually an hourly firm, I'm actually wasting their money. Add to that when you're in the detained setting, the deadlines are happening so fast and your client can't really help you develop your case and you're drinking from a fire hose out all the time. How do you do it? How do you represent these people to the level that they deserve, to the level that I know you actually do because you're Homero López? How do you pull that off?
Yeah, I think there's two things there. First, it's not Homero López. It's the entire team at Isla, right? And it's the support and everybody here that works together, the different people who will cover up a hearing, the various different attorneys that are in the office, our legal assistants, my wife who, I'll tell her I'm not coming home this night or I'm coming home. I don't get home till 9. And she's like, okay, great. I'm feeding the kids. Congratulations. Drive back. The support system that is both within the office and outside of the office and the broader community that is very supportive of the work we do. Folks who volunteer, who say, they believe in the mission and the work that we're doing, and they want to provide in whatever way that is, whether it be through a donation, whether it be through interpretation, translating documents, helping us put together country conditions reports, people volunteering to do psychological evaluations, whatever the situation happens to be. And so it's not Homero López. It's, I end up being the person that gets on the podcast or gets on the board or whatever, but it's the entire support system that exists there that lifts that up, that lets us be able to present the cases and present it to the best way that our clients, to the best representation that we can give our clients. On the second part of that, which I think is what you're getting at, is how do you continue to fight in these type of tight deadlines with a system that is constantly, especially now, churning things out and making it much more difficult to make an argument and present a case. There's, I have these conversations with our younger attorneys on a regular basis of what is our role and what are we doing and how do we not let that anxiety take over, or how do we at some point cut away and say, okay, that's as much as I can do. And a big part of it is remembering that it's a big problem here is systemic. It's not that, I could put in another 5-10 hours here or there. Is that going to make a difference to the systemic issue? And so targeting your challenge to what is the systemic problem that you're trying to address on a regular basis and constantly calling that out is part of our focus, and part of what we try to do is attacking the system as a whole and recognizing and always having that as the center point of, it's not that we're necessarily failing. We know we're putting in the work that we put in. We know we're putting in the work that's necessary. We're preparing the cases. The system, however, is built in such a way to demoralize people and have them give up and not fight their cases. And we're here to give, to be a witness for that process.
Louisiana's in the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. They're building all these new detention centers, lots of them in Texas, Louisiana, in the Fifth Circuit. ICE is forum shopping, and they've been doing that across presidential administrations. It makes an organization like ISLA that much more important. Is ISLA intending to expand? Do you see more nonprofits moving in to the Louisiana, Texas detained facility space? What is going on right now in your world?
We have slowly been expanding, and I think there's a tension there, right? Part of the intention, the vision, the mission of Isla is that we don't want detention to exist. And we're trying to also advocate and work on policy to try to get rid of detention, while at the same time, the folks who currently are detained do need representation in the moment. And so, and as we build up, we want folks who come in to have the culture and be, ingrained into the way that Isla views and how we're building this up. And like I said earlier, attacking it from a systemic approach, and having people who come in, not hiring people just to have bodies, but hiring folks who have that vision and that approach as well. But we are slowly expanding. It's difficult to find folks. I'm sure you've hired at some point and find how difficult it is to identify good talent, and just people who are willing to do detention work, because it is straining. It is emotionally draining. It is physically draining to make those kinds of drives, to be there, to talk with folks, to take that information in it takes a toll. And so it's difficult to find folks to expand on it. But we are expanding at ISLA. We don't necessarily have an open position right now, but if people are interested, they can reach out and we can talk. And if there's people interested in doing detention work in rural Louisiana, they can feel free to reach out and we can discuss an opportunity there.
Well, they can live in New Orleans. You've made that very clear.
Yeah, for sure. We all live in New Orleans. Everyone who works at ISLA lives in the New Orleans area. Historically,
have you got that one paralegal who I believe lives in a swamp? Yeah, like there's always one. You've got a Cajun on staff, right? I mean, you have to have local authenticity.
Yeah, we don't have anyone who lives in the swamp, but we do have people in the area. Or it's more like as I said earlier, more of community folks, volunteers and folks that we work with in those areas who are also doing the work. Regarding more nonprofit expansion in the area, there really hasn't been much. And historically, there wasn't either. That's why we started ISLA in 2018. There basically haven't really been many people interested in doing detention work in Louisiana. And that dearth of resources is where ISLA, we came in, we started it with no money in the bank, somehow on a wing and a prayer. Al and I put it together, and here we are now.
I want to talk about that, but first, so you're saying detention work is hard. There is a detention facility in Las Vegas where the meeting room, there's only one meeting room to meet with your client in the entire facility. And I swear it is a 4x3 cell. You, the attorney, are in the cell and you cannot open the door once they put you in there. There is no call button. And I was going there a lot over the summer. And after the second time, I told the officer, I'm not getting in there until my client is in the other room and you are staying around here. You're not. Last time I was here, you put me in that cell for 10 minutes and nobody, you become the detainee. It is a bad feeling. I don't know if it's like that in rural Louisiana. I haven't been to the facilities. What's Gina like?
Yeah. I mean, they have a visitation area where they have those rooms, but they do have call buttons and the guards are there on a regular basis. I mean, it's still a detention. It's a jail, right? We call it detention centers. They're jails. Gina in particular used to be a juvenile correctional center. And after some racial issues in 2008, it got shut down as a juvenile correctional center, and then it got reopened as an immigration space.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
What is ISLA's vision? You mentioned it. You flipped that it has views of detention, and you're talking about systemic issues, but you are representing people on an individual basis. What is ISLA's vision of immigration in America?
What's the vision of it currently, or what would we want it to be?
Both.
Currently, obviously, it's extremely problematic. It's incredibly outdated and needs to be significantly reformed. And I tell my students, right, because I also teach some immigration classes. I tell my students on a regular basis that immigration right now operates not as who we let in, but as who we want to keep out. It's very much who do we not want to come to the country? Who do we not want to let in, or who do we want to exclude? And I don't think that's the correct. And from an ISLA perspective, our focus is on getting policy reform as well to shift it to address more of what the needs are. I mean, you're obviously aware that the last time we've had major comprehensive immigration reform was back in 1965, over 60 years ago when the INA, that's still the bones and the framework that our immigration laws are based off of. There's very little left in the country that still operates like it operated in 1965. And so we have to significantly revamp that. And after amnesty, after Reagan in 86 as an amnesty, all of the changes that have come to immigration law have primarily been punitive in nature, right? The laws that have passed since then have essentially been on militarizing the border, shutting things down, keeping people out, or either keeping people out or kicking people out. And so our approach, our preference from an ISLA perspective on a vision of what immigration would look like in the future would be ways in which are mutually beneficial to both the US as well as the sending countries. So whatever country it happens to be, the purpose would be, what does the US need and what do those countries also need, and have it be more of a open flow of people. People migrate, animals migrate. That's what we do. And so we should incorporate that into our policies. As somebody who grew up in South Texas on the border and regularly went back and forth to Mexico with family, that's what people do. People migrate. People cross those borders on a regular basis, and we should be more, our policy should recognize that and implement that a lot more.
You didn't go to law school to enter data. I know I didn't. Yet here you are. H-1B season in full swing, and your team is buried in beneficiary forms, document chasing, and data entry. That's $400 an hour in legal talent doing $20 an hour work. Staffy plugs directly into your workflow. Staffy handles the data entry, document collection, and H-1B form prep. Your team reviews it, you approve it, you bill. With the new wage-weighted selection process adding even more admin pressure this season, the firms that scale are the ones that stop doing it all themselves. Say yes to more H-1B clients without burning out your team. Visit staffy.cc or call 786-891-5619 or click on the special link in the show notes. Because you deserve a practice that grows without burning you out. I get concerned that we are past the point of no return with the giant expansion in detention centers, $10 billion allocated, turning warehouses or whatever it is into facilities. And once those facilities are built, and they will be soon, and the ones that currently are, there are actual economic interests at stake and corporations who can sue, who don't want to lose money, and you get a lot of money to lobby and buy politicians.
Yeah.
That's already happening. That cycle, look it up. Do you have similar fears? Once the money is so ingrained and it feeds into a significant element of this country that has xenophobic tendencies, I sometimes fear that humane immigration policy might not happen in our lifetime. You being older.
You're gonna keep on reminding me about that one, aren't you? We've seen it happen right here in Louisiana. You have the incarceration capital of the world per capita. Louisiana is. In 2017, we had some major criminal reform bills, and great job by our local organizations who pressed those and got those passed in a very red legislature. But even when those criminal justice reform bills happened, in those same rural areas where those jails shut down and folks were released, those same jails were then transferred and became immigration detention centers.
Wow.
So as it had happened with Gina, when it got shut down as a juvenile correctional center, it became an immigration detention center. We're now seeing it happen with these other state jails that have also shut down and have been converted into immigration detention centers. And so we're already seeing that happen. And part of the thing was there was nothing to replace that economic engine. As you said, it is jailing, locking people up is an economic engine in these areas. Now, where my hope comes in is that I think we're smart enough. I think, right, not necessarily me, but I do think we as a population, as a people, are smart enough to come up with ideas that can provide benefit and and be an economic engine in these rural areas that do not require us to lock people up. And if we can come up with those more hopeful, forward-looking ideas and opportunities for folks, because that's what folks are looking for, is an opportunity. And I understand that, again, living in South Texas, seeing the way things work there. I was a migrant worker with my mom as a child, and we moved around the Midwest a lot, seeing how those factory towns also worked and the way people, like when there is this one economic engine, I understand, and I've lived in those areas and I've seen how that works. And what people are looking for is opportunity. I think there is an aspect of it where there are certain people that are xenophobic and buy into it as well from that perspective. But I think if we provide people with opportunities that aren't locking people up, then they'll take those other opportunities as well. Talking with guards at the detention centers, a lot of them don't necessarily want to do it. It's just that's the best paying job in the area.
Tell me a bit about growing up as a migrant worker with your mother. You were a child, South Texas. I think we talked about it. My wife she grew up in Harlingen. You were near there, right? What,
About an hour from Harlingen, I was about an hour west along the river.
what was it like being a migrant worker child in the 1950s?
I'm 41. I wasn't born in 41.
Okay, all right. No one can see you. You can lie all you want.
It was, I mean, as a child, it was fun. Looking back on it, I recognize the difficulties, and obviously I wouldn't want to do it as an adult. As a child, it was fun. Like, I didn't know any better. That was my life. My mom moved. I think she started doing it when I was five or six. We moved to Colorado originally. And when I say moved to, it was temporarily, right? You follow the crops. So I would go to 2 to 3 schools, give or take, every year. When the crop finished in this spot, we moved to another spot, and I'd get pulled out and I'd be put in the next school. The weekends, I worked the fields with my mom because that's what you do. And you play around a lot outside in the farms and whatnot with the other kids. And during the summers, my mom would take me to Mexico with my grandparents and my uncles, and I'd spend the summers in Mexico. I learned later that you can summer in Mexico, and apparently I was summering my entire childhood in Mexico. I didn't know that was a thing.
You are an elitist.
I was, very much so.
And it occurs to me, what is it, the 1981 decision with Justice Stevens saying that well, I guess you were a U.S. citizen, but still that everybody gets public education in America, including the undocumented children or the children of undocumented individuals. But for that decision that certain elements of America are trying to get the Supreme Court to overturn, we might not have a Homero López.
We probably wouldn't. I probably wouldn't be here, obviously, without the support of tons of people. Primarily the women in my life, right? My mom, my wife, my co-founder with Isla, basically all of our staff is women. And so it's always been this very supportive group throughout my life, and people just being nice and showing kindness throughout, right? Growing up, other schoolmates that I went to school with being like, hey, come over, let's have dinner. Your mom's working, whatnot, and working things through that way where it's just showing that little bit of kindness to somebody else, and you don't have to, but it's, the correct, in my opinion, thing to do.
Cognizant that I shouldn't make light of child labor, and I have no intent to do so. But I guess we can talk about it, right? Sitting here 30, 35 years later. What is the worst prop and what is the best prop to be involved in, at least as a child, I suppose? What's the one like, oh no, I don't want to go. I hope we're not going to that theater. And then the one you're like, you know what? This is great. This can possibly happen. I
really like both to eat beets and corn. So to me, those were fun.
Okay, well, that's a problem because then you're just picking and eating.
Because then, you could have taken a little bit. Onions were very much not fun. You would have to use the hoe and then pull them out, and then they smell, and I just didn't like that. So I would say onions were the worst. Beets, corn were the best. Beets also are a root vegetable, though. I was thinking, right? I would think that the easier one would be the ones that you're picking and don't have to dip. Yeah, but I liked beets, so I guess that there's, there was a reward at the end. I just wanted to eat the beet, and you eat a beet like you're caught immediately. You got purple all over your face. All over. Yeah. No, you had to take it home.
Asking the hard-hitting question, Gil. Before we shift over, how did one create a nonprofit, and how did one just do it? Especially a nonprofit where you need other people's money, right? You need grants, you need something. How does one create a nonprofit in immigration? Do it?
I attribute the majority of my success to my community and my support system, I also attribute a significant chunk of it to just honestly pure luck. We started Isla. I mean, you do it. You decide to do it is how you start it. We started Isla honestly with no money. We had nothing. Neither of us had ever run a nonprofit or business of any kind for that matter. We're just like, yeah, we can do this. And it needs to be done. There needs to be representation for detained immigrants throughout Louisiana. And then one of my co-founders' friend gave us seed money. She sat down with us and she was like, I know what it's like. She's a philanthropist. She gives out money. We didn't know this when we started or when we first met her. And she basically goes around to conferences giving out money. And she sat us down and she was like, I know she came to our first fundraiser, which was at a bar. And we were getting we got like $3,000 that night or something. And she's like, this is cute. Come talk to me. And she sat us down and she was like, I know how these things work. In order to get grants, you have to show that you can do the work. But in order to do the work, you need to have money. And it's this vicious cycle that unless you know somebody, you're really not going to be able to break in. And so she gave us seed money for those first 3 years. She's like, I'm going to fund you at this amount for the first 3 years. You guys will then be able to show that you can do the work. She's like, I believe in the mission. I believe in what you're doing. And so here's the money, no strings attached. And then we were able to show that we could do the work. And then we started getting grants and we started, building from there. So that to me is honestly like, yes, part of it requires preparation. It requires you doing the work and having a vision and doing it. But it's also being ready when luck strikes. And we got lucky there.
And her name was Mackenzie Scott.
She prefers to not be named.
Is she one of these old money you don't name her. Is she one of these old money New Orleans people with like the big old houses and the big balconies? Is it one of them?
It's old money. That's not the way she lives her life.
Right.
Her family's not from New Orleans proper. They're from like swampland around.
Swampland money.
Between here and Baton Rouge.
Swamp money.
Yeah.
Like a debutante.
There's plenty of debutantes in New Orleans.
I'm not even sure what that means. I like to give New Orleans the kicks. I think my brother told me that there are 4 alligators to every human in Louisiana. Have you heard this?
I have not heard it, but I would not be surprised.
You wouldn't doubt it. You and Isla are the only EJA win on petition for review since the podcast began almost 6 years ago. And I suspect you got to be one of a dozen in the last 20 years. Like, you don't get attorney's fees, at least in a precedential decision, very often from petition for review. It's the Nkengla fact decision, the return of the fact. And if I recall, it was because the immigration judge made an adverse credibility decision based on evidence that was not in the record and that the judge didn't even put into the record. That's correct. That was what happened.
Yeah.
But still, it has to be an indefensible decision, essentially.
Right.
Oil has to be indefensibly arguing their position at the circuit level to get attorney's fees. How did you get attorney's fees in the Fifth Circuit on an adverse credible IJ BIA decision? By the way, to the tune of about $50,000 for Isla, if I'm remembering correctly. How did you do that?
The immigration judge, did a horrible job, and the BIA, the panel at the BIA, except for the dissenting member, did an even worse job. A little bit of the background, right? The judge introduced evidence that relied on evidence that had not been introduced. It was never part of the record in order to find our client, Mr. Nkengla, not credible. And then when we appealed it to the BIA's decision said that we had waived that, or that our client had waived it. We didn't represent him originally at the immigration court level. We represented him at the BIA and then at the Fifth. The BIA said that he had waived his right to challenge that because he hadn't moved for the evidence to be admitted. The evidence that had never been presented that the judge relied on after the hearing was over and that was outside the record.
That's brutal.
So, and somehow Oil didn't want to remand that. They wanted to take it forward, and they did. And during the hearing, during the oral argument, there was this moment where I was like, okay, I think we've got this. Where the chief or the senior judge on the panel asked the oil attorney, he was like, all three judges agree that this wasn't part of the record. How are you saying that this should be, how are you saying that they were right? Or how are you saying that they were wrong? And she's like, no, they didn't agree. And he was like, yes, they did. And she's like, no. And he wasn't, this judge was this is the demeanor of a judge. Because at that moment, I can see many judges going off and being like, look, lady, you're lying to me. And instead he was like, okay, proceed. And he just sat back. And at that moment when he sat back, I was like, okay, I think we might have this. I think we've got this one.
Well, that's how you win. That's not how you get fees, though.
Well, that's how we win. And then on the fees part, they were so it was completely indefensible. They had no way of defending their argument. And so, yeah, everybody that sent us a sample, I think we received 4 samples of motions for each of fees. Everybody that sent us one was a loss. They're like, we didn't win, but here's the sample.
Yeah.
As you said, it is generally really difficult to win. And I think that's how bad the decision was. And it was that bad from the judge to start off with. The BIA made it even worse. And therefore, as we took it up, and I'm happy to report that Mr. Nkengelfak is won his asylum on remand and is now a permanent resident.
That's right. Didn't you write me that he had been removed and then they had to bring him back? Am I correct?
Yeah. During the pendency of the PFR, the 5th didn't grant the stay. So he was removed to Cameroon, where he was in hiding. And we had to work really hard on getting him back. On multiple occasions, the Department of State had issued documentation for the airport to let him get on a plane to come back. And when he was at the airport, they wouldn't let him there.
Oh my God. And this is the guy he's in hiding.
This is the guy who's in hiding for the government. Yeah.
So he's showed up. He's like, I'm going to risk it. I'm coming to the airport. And then they just turn him away.
Twice. Yeah.
How does this work when you've got to get somebody back? First of all, what kind of travel document or visa do you even give to someone like that? Do you give them a parole in the foreign airport?
Yes, the DHS has to coordinate with the Department of State to issue a parole from the attaché in that country at the airport so that when he arrives, they have the documentation.
So you've got an attaché from the consulate waiting for the guy in the airport?
I don't think the attaché was, the third time the attaché was physically there, but the first 2 times he wasn't, he had sent the documentation. They had sent us a documentation, which we had sent to our client, and he showed up with printouts, but they said those weren't official documents, therefore it wasn't sufficient. And
who said this? The Cameroonian government or the airplane?
It was the airline, I believe. He had gotten through because he had his ticket, so he had gotten through.
Who buys the ticket?
He had bought the ticket. His family had found a way to buy him the ticket.
So you get wrongly removed, and then they have to buy the ticket back.
Oh yeah, the government won't cover your expenses to come back. Yeah.
This is facilitation, by the way. The word facilitate was all over the Supreme Court last year. This is what facilitation looks like. This is what they say they can't do. This minor.
What they will bring back, because we've had clients that have also been illegally deported when their cases are on appeal or something, is if it's a place where they regularly deport people to, you can go to the U.S. consulate and they'll pick you up and put you back on the plane and bring you back.
They'll just put you on the deportation plane back? Oh, my God.
And if you're in detention, they'll send you back to detention.
Right. Where does that land? The detention plane?
In Alexandria, Louisiana.
Okay.
And then
it lands like near a detention facility. Oh, my. See, this is why people need to reach out to you. You know the things that nobody should know.
Well, the things that should not have to happen, unfortunately.
They should be known, but they
happen.
That's right. It's a better way of saying it. Who is the dissenting board member? I'm sure he or she's gone now. Who is it?
He is gone. It was it Deputy Chief Appellate Immigration Judge Atkins Blanche.
Okay.
He was a dissenter.
Not sure what to do when a client asks you about the EB-5 investor visa or how they can choose the right EB-5 project? That's where EB-5 support comes in. Founded and led by veteran immigration attorney Irina Rostova, EB-5 support helps investors navigate the entire process of EB-5 project selection and provides complimentary training for immigration attorneys who want to strengthen their EB-5 petition filing skills. Visit eb5support.com. That's eb-5support.com. Or click on the link in the show notes. Access their online attorney portal for training tools and practical resources, or schedule a time to speak with the team. All project guidance is provided by FINRA-registered financial professionals, so you and your clients can proceed with confidence. EB-5 Support, where immigration law meets investment expertise. Securities offered through Sequence Financial Specialists. Doing business as Invest America. Elevate your advocacy and storytelling skills at the annual Immigration Court Trial Advocacy College. Registration is now open. The annual Immigration Court Trial Advocacy College convenes every year in April, only in Kansas City, Missouri, hosted by the Pen and Sword, that awesome community resource founded by Reka and Michael Sharma Crawford. This year, the program has been reimagined and reworked to address the current climate of aggressive deportation enforcement. These times are not ordinary, so the program had to be extraordinary. Expanding from 3 to 4 days, the Trial College provides comprehensive training from beginning to end, real cases taught by real litigators in real courtrooms. The skills you need, the confidence you deserve, and the mentors you look up to, all in one place. Register early to avoid disappointment at www.thepen-and-swordkc.org or at the special links in the show notes. Use special code ImmigrationReview26 to get $50 off the Trial Advocacy College this year. That's capital I, capital R. And so you get $50,000 because the board is so wrong, and as a reward, the Biden administration puts you on the board. Maybe you can clean this up, right? That. When I saw that you got appointed, I must say I was laughing. Like, wow, this like drops the mic, gets all this money, and then like gets put on the board. But it was short lived.
It was short lived
because Kamala Harris didn't win, and they just cleaned house at the board. I know people have been fired in the past, but it's never not like this. And what they've done with you were still in your temporary position, but just a clean house with all temporary people. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think this was unprecedented.
It was unprecedented. I believe the last time they did something like this, they mostly reassigned people.
Yeah.
They didn't necessarily fire people, or they like forced people to retire kind of situation. This time around, and I went in very clear-eyed. I expected this to happen if Trump won. We didn't fully move to DC. I was up there weekly, but my wife and daughters were here, which huge shout out to her because she held down the fort for 10 months of
unbelievable,
basically being a single mother all week, which was rough on her and on us as a family and as a couple. But we expected this was a possibility, and yeah, it came to pass. I was specifically targeted, so I was put on administrative leave on January 28th, and then officially fired on February 10th of 2025. You can do the math on the 28th of how long that took them to get me out of there. And then they got rid of everybody else, I think, in mid to late March. I think it was March 20th that everybody else is, every of the other temporaries, some not temporary, some were already passed, and they still got rid of them as well.
That's just illegal. Although if they're going to just say the president can do whatever he wants, then I guess everything's legal. That those lawsuits are playing themselves out. I don't think it should be lost on people. 10 months, separated in part from your wife and children, to dedicate to America, to do a position that's very difficult and can be thankless. I know immigration judges who did same things, who moved to cities and sometimes for years away from where their home base was, and then just be cast aside. I don't need to tell you, but I don't think that's a reflection. I think that's not a reflection of you at all. And it's more of a reflection of the character of those who made the decisions.
I wear it as a badge of honor. I mean, at this point.
What was it like to be the board for 10 months, though? What'd you do?
I think I did a bit of good work overall. It was interesting to see the inside, to see how it works, to see how decisions are made, the different personalities, how people interact, and to see the way policy gets built out and the thought process that goes into it, the way the different, who is, intellectually consistent and who cares about just the end result, and how those decisions and those discussions go down. And also to just see the structure of the way the board works, the understanding now why they never responded to my motion to expedite. And it's like, oh, well, an appellate judge never looks at that until the final case gets through. So motion practice at the board is essentially not going to move the case quicker, or isn't going to get you're not going to get decisions on your motions before you're going to get decision on the merits. And so learning, as I see all of these things happen, the fact that, how many people are there, and how many people have been, how lifers and where they come from and what their backgrounds are, just kind of getting those understandings and meeting people on a one-to-one, having those conversations. It was a very interesting experience overall. I would say worthwhile. And I guess my only real regret would be, not getting out some published decisions that we had queued up that, would have been, I think, a little bit fairer and the overall structure, and kind of try to shift the system a little bit.
But you couldn't have done it anyway, right? I've since learned that every precedential decision from the BIA has to be unanimous, or at least there can't be people who don't want to make it precedential.
No, it doesn't have to be unanimous, but the entire board votes on it.
And so it's a majority of the entire board of whether to make the decision precedential.
Correct.
So if you fire people who have different views of the law, then it's a lot easier to get your vote for precedentialness to make a
There's a reason why, in the last year, they've published more presidential decisions.
I'm reading them you don't got to tell me.
Exactly.
It's been over 80 since maybe approaching 90. I don't know. And if you just figure out that the attorney general can just make non-precedential things precedential, oh my God, what a neat trick. Did you know about that trick when you were there?
I did not know about that trick when I was there. I was still figuring out, or I was working on how to get people to agree with the decisions that I wanted to get published.
How naive.
I should have just tried to be attorney general, I guess.
Yeah, you should have just been buddy-buddy with Merrick Garland.
Yeah.
Who cared very much about immigration policy in America.
So much.
Top of the issue.
That he didn't want to disturb it too much.
Name names. Who are the ones who were intellectually consistent, and who are the ones that were just there for policy? You said it. I didn't say it. Who are the ones? You said it. I wasn't going to do this. I don't want to do this.
I'll plead the fifth.
I mean, whatever.
You can buy me a drink at the next FBA and we can have a conversation at the bar.
I've got to miss this year for personal reasons.
See, you're going to miss out on the information then.
Well, I mean, this is the time to say it's literally the interview, but you say at your time at the board that you, quote, applied immigration laws in a fair, impartial, humane, and equitable manner, ensuring all parties are treated with respect and dignity, end quote. I'm sure you did.
AI does a lot of work when you put things into there.
Right. But you know what? To give them the benefit, I bet you most, if not all, the current board members would think that they're doing the same thing. Some of them. And so how can you square that? How can you square that you think you were doing that? I know you were doing that. And that they think they're doing that. And yet the results are so grossly different and sometimes cruel. How can you square that? Why is law so weird? That's the big question, Homero.
Oh my. Um, I'll answer it this way, and I think it partially plays into why I decided to even apply to the board. As I said earlier, Isla, the work that I do here, the detention work and whatnot, is what I actually love to do. I like to be in court. I like to do the detention work. It's, again, I enjoy that. But I think when you have a lack of exposure to other people, and I said this during my interview when they asked me the final question of basically why you, like, why should we select you for this position? And for decades, the board had these blinders on where everybody that was at the board either had worked at the board basically their entire careers and had worked their way up into an AIJ position, had been an immigration judge, or had been DHS counsel. And so you then are in this bubble, you're in this groupthink type of situation where you don't have exposure to these other ways of thinking or these other folks who have different perspectives. And then come, 2021, and Andrea gets appointed to the board, and you have somebody from the nonprofit world going in there with a very different perspective who worked not only from the nonprofit world, but from a public defender system that she came from as well. And when my wife then pushes me and she's like, you constantly come home bitching about these judges making bad decisions. Are they really that bad? Or is it you that you just don't understand the law? And
wow, getting it at work and at home.
Yeah, she's a straightforward woman. And so the position becomes available. She's like, well, throw your hat in then. If you want to be there, you want to say something about it and you want to change the perspective. And so Andrea having been appointed also, then I'm like, oh, maybe there is a shift here where they are trying to appoint people from not everybody who comes from within the government, but they're trying to get different perspectives. And I think that's what it comes down to, because there were many times that I had conversations with different AIJs who just could not see or could not grasp that concept of detention, right? Where what happens when somebody is mailing something in and you're strictly holding to the 30-day deadline, but the thing sat, like, he mailed it out 10 days ahead of time. It sat at the mail office at the detention center for 5 days. And then at the Alexandria post office for 10 days. And then it got late to the court. Are they, like, it's not their fault. They're doing their due diligence. They're doing everything they can into the way that they can. And so giving that point of view of they get this many hours to go to the library. This is what they have to do. This is how they have to request it. These are the limitations that folks are dealing with. And so many of the folks that were at the board had this completely removed perspective of I work in theory, right? I work on the law. I work on statutes. I apply it evenly. And so, yes, they are applying it evenly, but if you don't have the context, if you don't have the understanding of what's happening in real life on the ground, then it's going to be really difficult to listen and hear that perspective from somebody else when they're writing it in their brief or they're trying to make their argument. And there were multiple times where I had those conversations with folks at the board who just do not think the same way, and it's not because they're necessarily malicious. There are some that are, but I don't think they're all necessarily malicious. I think a lot of it is just the lack of exposure. And so I think that's part of the issue is when you're caught up in an area where you're not exposed to certain aspects. And this, I think, applies to immigration more broadly as a whole. When you're not exposed to certain folks and you're not exposed to different perspectives, you're going to only understand what it is that you understand.
Do you think it's a fear of the job thing that's motivating a lot of current board members, or do you think we've got true believers who think that this is the correct interpretation of the INA and this is how an immigration system should be?
I think it's a combination of there are some people who are afraid of losing their positions. A lot of people who have left have gone to other government jobs. I think there's a lot. This, again, goes to this lack of exposure, right? There's a lot of folks that feel that they can't work not a government job. It's difficult to get out of there. And so I think part of it is the fear of the job, the fear of losing your job. And then, yes, I said it earlier. There are some people that do it out of malice, and I do think there are some folks that are there that are malicious, and then there's others that it doesn't directly affect them, or they don't necessarily. It's an intellectual exercise, I think this is how it should be. It's a lot more policy work that is being done by the board than it necessarily used to be. If we look at the decisions, they're falling very much in lockstep with what is coming down from the White House. It's not an independent board in any way whatsoever right now.
Yeah, that's right. That's why there should have been Article 1 from the get-go. That's why the whole system is insane.
Yeah, the decision that came down, was it yesterday, today?
The U visa one? That was today.
The SIG one from, I think it was today.
I'm sorry, not U visa, right? It's SIG. No, I'm getting
which is taking up an interlocutory appeal of a continuance in a non-detained case, and you're issuing a precedential decision on that. That's obviously to set policy.
Every single time they drop these footnotes, they didn't even say that on this one with the SIG one, I don't think. They've been dropping these footnotes that say, usually we don't take interlocutory appeals, but this case is so important. Look, they've done it like 6-7 times. I'm like, guys, like, you keep saying it, and like the special reason is to be harsh to non-citizens. Like, just drop the footnote. Yeah, if you start summarily dismissing appeals, it makes it a lot easier to issue precedential policy.
Yeah.
What do you think this is all doing to immigration judges that you appear before, or through your grapevine of current IJs or attorney advisors at the board? Do you think a lot of them are ruling in a way because they really want to keep their job and that it's eating them up inside? Do you think people just don't care? Do you think a lot of people are, you know what, this is what it should have always been, and so I'm happy about it? Is it all of them?
I think it's a mixture of all of that. The ones that I know, I don't know many personally, so I can't really speak to their personalities, whether it's eating them inside or not. But it does, from the way they operate, it does seem that a lot of them are very much aware of the threat to their job. And they'll essentially say it on the record. Some have said, I've had judges who say, like, I can't grant this motion to terminate because the government opposes on a discretionary motion to terminate. And, on that discretionary motion to terminate in the reg,
there's literally a new reg. Literally a reg.
There's a reg that says you can't if the government opposes on naturalization.
Right.
And because they made the distinction between naturalization and non-naturalization, then it means you can when DHS opposes on these other issues. But they understand what's going to happen is DHS is going to appeal. And what we've seen for the last year from the BIA is a lot of DHS appeals being upheld and sent down as presidential decisions, and then immigration judges being fired while they're on the bench, or, not on the bench whenever they happen to be fired via random email. And I do think there's that fear comes across in the way the judges are talking and discussing the cases.
I just can't believe the cruelty of it all. To non-citizens and to the federal workforce. And putting aside, I'm sure people have been fired who I wouldn't have agreed with. Right. That's not the point. I didn't think this was who we were. I was with EOIR for 2 years as an attorney advisor. I still think of it as a home. The cruelty truly does seem sometimes to be the point.
And I think that, again, whether that's the individual judges, I'm sure there's some individual judges that themselves feel that way and want that and, relish in it. I've been in front of some of them. And I'm sure there's others that don't want that necessarily, but, they have their jobs and they have their personal reasons as to why they want to keep that income and those benefits and what comes with it. Everybody has their reasons for why they do, and everybody has their line. And that's one of the things that I've told to the attorney advisors when they've asked, how long should I stay, or what do you think I should do? My response to them has always been, know your line. Like, what is it that you're unwilling to do? When is it that you want? And when that gets crossed, leave. Because the minute you let that get crossed and you're not willing to take that move or make that move, then you'll let the next thing come, and you'll let the next thing pass, and you'll let the next thing pass.
Who do you think's operating the board right now? Who's the brain behind what we've been seeing in the last year? Is it Cersei Owens? Is it McHenry? Is Stephen Miller directly involved? What do you think's going on at the board right now? Because I don't think it's Pam Bondi. No, that's not a dig on Pam Bondi. I just don't think that she's got more important things to do.
Yeah, she's concerned with the Dow hitting 50.
That's
so,
right.
I think, I don't know from the policy side necessarily. Like, I didn't deal with anybody at, what they call main justice. I didn't have any interactions with McHenry, so I don't really know any of his background. But to me, it's got to be somebody coming in from main justice or from the White House, some policy directive from the White House directly, because the decisions are coming in that way. You see this uniform, organized approach where DHS is appealing certain things, right? And the fact that everything is within the executive branch, you've got DOJ and DHS, and they're working in unison now.
They're incestuous.
Yeah. And so
you like to be in such an incestuous relation. No, I'm just kidding. No, there's 4 alligators to every human in Louisiana.
Every human in Louisiana. So I think it's coming down. It's definitely a policy decision coming down from the White House, from main DOJ, that this is happening, and a coordination between DOJ and DHS. Again, the case that was decided today, right, where DHS is carrying out interlocutory appeals. Let's be honest, DHS generally does not appeal a lot, or used to not appeal a lot, and used to most definitely not do interlocutory appeals. And so you're getting these appeals from DHS knowing we're trying to identify these specific issues. We have a case where our client lost on a cat claim, and DHS appealed because the judge did not find the trig bar on the asylum claim. So that lets us know you're trying to get a presidential decision on when does the trig bar apply.
And you think you have a open appellate body, and the appeals court, like so many of their decisions, I mean, they're issuing decisions on feel. Like, you're going to issue a bond decision, you're going to issue a continuance decision. Like, it's all case specific. I understand that it's making some law, but it seems that with many of these decisions, they're just trying to put another shot across the bow of IJs on the bench. Hey, better fall in line, read between the lines, better fall in line. Because a lot of these decisions aren't traditional precedential appellate body decisions, the types of stuff that you'd make precedential. A lot of the time, new law doesn't seem to be really being broken. Maybe it's just me in my interpretation.
No, I agree with that. I don't think a lot of new law has been broken. I think it's been a lot of, this is really how you're supposed to be deciding this.
Yeah.
And it's been much more of an instruction of decide this way.
The Board of Feels. The Board of Vibes. Right, the Board of Vibes. That's how Gen Z would say it. The Board of Vibes. That's right.
You're so cool.
I am cool. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. Before we wrap it up, what advice would you have to attorneys appearing before this board in particular to give themselves the best chance of winning for their client?
Make your record at the immigration court level as much as you can. Obviously, not everybody gets the case at that level. They sometimes just get it on appeal. At the board, I think there's an underusage of motions to remand, where cite to what's missing in order for the board to properly make a decision, because there is generally a view towards what is the circuit going to say, and is there a way that I'm going to get remanded at the circuit? And if I can't protect this against circuit review, then try to find that issue to ask for it to be remanded for that purpose. So I think more motions to remand on particular issues, or even just as part of your briefing, requesting remand when that's available, or when there's an issue there that you want to address, whether it be a finding of fact that wasn't made, that isn't tied in directly to the finding of law, or to the law finding that the judge made. And then honestly, prepare for a PFR. given this current board and this current board's makeup and how they're operating and the way they're issuing decisions, your audience at the board, even on your board briefing, is still the circuit. And even what I just said before, right? The remanding stuff, it's because there's going to be some board members who are going to be focusing on how might I get overturned on this if this goes up on appeal. So very much focusing on your circuit law in making your arguments. And so, listening to you and your interpretations of the cases as they come down. And focusing on the circuits and your circuit law.
Look at that. An unsolicited plug. But now you're part of it. Now you're on. So you have an invested interest.
Now I have a reason. Now I have even more of a reason to promote immigration review.
Which is a great way to end it. So I was going to end it anyway. Promote yourself. How can people reach out to you? What are you currently up to? What do you need? And what do you think of the state of this country on immigration? Just roll with it, Homero.
Man, those were real simple,
That's
easy.
Right. And by the way, also, please explain the economic history of America over the last 100 years. Let's start. How can people reach out to you and get involved in the projects that you're involved in?
Yeah. So eastlyeimmigration.org is our website. You can find us there. Mine is hlopez at eastlyeimmigration.org. If you want to email me, I might forward you to someone else to respond, though, depending on how many emails I get. Right now, one of the main projects, we do detention work generally throughout Louisiana and the Gulf South more broadly. One of the main projects, though, that we're working on, as is happening across the country on immigration issues, is habeas. And unfortunately, again, being in the Fifth, we have generally bad law when it comes to habeas, and we got a really bad one.
Judge Jones did not mess around. She went for it. She got it. She got her case.
Yeah. When I saw her on the panel, I was like, yeah, this is going to be fun. So, yeah, the thing is, they didn't get rid of due process. They only got
celebrate the wins.
We can focus on what still works. And we've had some of our colleagues from NIP and other orgs, ACLU, RFK, have also been litigating some cases and have gotten some other good wins on other issues. And so right now we have a project with NIP where we are coordinating placement of pro se folks in detention who are eligible for habeas. We really need federal litigators who are willing to take on habeas cases. And we generally identify folks that are in detention who need habeas representation, whether it be a prolonged detention, sedvitis type of claim, or a redetention after release type of claim that still works here. Or we're still pushing on generally, this is a due process violation. And so we need litigators, people who are willing to. If you're not barred in Louisiana, you need local counsel. We'll enroll. Obviously, you have to pro hac vice and take over the case. So whether you want supervision, and we can provide some supervision and mentorship along with NIP, or if you can take the case on yourself and we just find you somebody and we assign you a case, we can do that as well. So that's one of the big needs that's happening here right now, with so many cases getting, so quickly, as we've been discussing, the BIA giving judges instructions on how to quickly get rid of cases, and Yahoo de Hurtado and Buen Rostro Mendez that came out here in the Fifth Circuit, killing bond for so many folks. Habeas is the way to get them out.
Links to all of the things that you mentioned and anything else will be in the show notes about how to reach out to you, and maybe even someone with your team, so you don't have to field all the emails. Hopefully you get a lot. And before we go, I do want to give the floor back to you. Tell us something positive about the situation we're currently in. What is the light at the end of the tunnel? How does this end in a positive way as you see it? Because right now, a lot of people feel like we're in a dark place immigration-wise.
Yeah. We are in a dark place immigration-wise, at least from the non-citizen, the defense side, we're in a very dark place. I think the light at the end of the tunnel is knowing that, we get to rebuild this down the road. Never have the exclusionary power folks, the people who want to keep people out, been the good guys. And never have they necessarily succeeded or succeeded long term. And so that to me is the light at the end of the tunnel is we will get to rebuild this. And again, being a witness to what's happening, to be able to testify to what's happening later, to be able to say, no, don't forget, this is how it went down. And as we restructure and as we rebuild institutions, it's not about the institution itself. It's about how we staff up, how we build it, what the culture is of that institution and what the goal is that you're supposed to do with it and what is the intentionality that we put behind the rebuilding of what comes next, because something will come next. This isn't going to last forever. And at the end of it, what will we rebuild and how do we rebuild that is going to be our role and the role that we're going to play in that. And that's the thing that keeps us going as we see how badly they dismantle it. When we rebuild it, what does that look like? And taking note of what's happening now to make sure that we can avoid that taking place so quickly in the future again.
I'm down for that. And I'll be the first to start the petition to get Homero and Andrea back on the board in 2029. First appointments. If you both desire, if you haven't been so horribly scarred by your experiences over the last couple of years.
Thank you.
So there you have it. I'm Kevin A. Gregg, a partner with the law firm Kurzban, Tetzeli, and Pratt, and this has been another episode of Immigration Review. Thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please share it with a friend and rate and review us. Each review helps new listeners find the show. And of course, subscribe to Immigration Review wherever you get your podcasts. If you like what we do and want to become a patron of the show, please check out our Patreon page at www.patreon.com/Immigration Review or click on the link in the show notes. And if you're interested in an official Immigration Review CLE certificate, email me at kgreg@kktplaw.com with your full name and the episode numbers for the 10 shows you've listened to. Also, feel free to email me with questions, comments, or anything at all, and follow the show on Instagram and Facebook at Immigration Review, or send us a tweet at ImReview. That's IMM Review. And we're always interested in hearing listener feedback. Like this review about the episode you just listened to from my very young son. Son, how did you like that episode? Indeed. If you, like my son, enjoyed what you just heard, again, please give the Patreon page some love, feel free to review the pod, reach out to me with your own kind sounds, or do anything else nice that your heart desires. I'll be back next week for a brand new discussion. Until then, I'm Kevin A. Gregg, bringing you the Immigration Review.